Welcome everyone to today's Virtual Digital Economy seminar. Christian will moderate today's talk and he'll introduce our guest in a second. But briefly, before we start, please send all your clarifying questions to everyone in the chat window throughout the talk so Chris can manage the queue and interrupt the speaker at a convenient time, either for you to ask the question or I can also ask the question for you if you prefer. We will collect all remaining questions for the Q&A after the talk, and so don't hesitate at any time to post questions in the chat window. Today's session will be recorded, so if you do ask a question, you will appear in that recording. And as always, feel free to turn on your camera to give the speaker a bit more of an interactive experience. Yeah, so happy to hand over to Christian.
Thanks, Hannes, and welcome everyone. It's my great pleasure to introduce Jui Ramaprasad, who's an associate professor of information systems at the University of Maryland. Jui studies the impact of platform features and social influence, measured by all kinds of things, including social media activity, social media buzz, social network characteristics, on a bunch of things like user participation, interaction, consumption, in lots of interesting contexts. I've, in particular, find her studies on online music platforms really interesting, but she's also done some stuff on online dating platforms. Jui has published in all of the right places, ISR, MISQ, Management Science. She also serves as an associate editor at these journals. So I'm just very happy that, Jui, you have the time to join us today, and I'll be happy to hand over to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the invitation and for having me here today. I'm really looking forward to sharing this with all of you. And as we spoke about just before everybody joined, it is a work in progress. So I'm really happy to hear any comments, feedback along the way. This is a paper with a PhD student, my PhD student at the University of Maryland, Guije, and I will also say that so much of the work is his, and so I don't want to take credit where credit's not due. And so, you know, everything that's right with the paper is all him, and anything that's wrong, you can put you can place the blame on me. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here today. It is nice to see some familiar faces and some people I haven't met before, and I'm happy to see you here. So. With that, I'll go ahead and get started, and I hope I follow all the rules that I'm supposed to. Just let me know if there's. I'll ask for questions as I go through it as well. So the title of this paper is the Spillover Value of Repeat Buyers: an empirical investigation of updated reviews on Yelp. So I'll start, I'll go through kind of the normal thing we usually go through with the paper. I think given the time, I won't get through all of the specifics of the robustness checks and supplementary analysis, but I'll give you an overview of what we do that kind of, you know, makes me believe that the effects that we have found are robust. But of course, I'd be happy to hear if you don't think so. So as I said, the title of the paper is about the spillover value of repeat buyers. And so clearly, you know, the motivation behind this comes from the fact that we think that repeat buyers are critically important for business, right? Not just that we think that, but lots of research has showed us that, right? So 61% of small and medium-sized businesses report that more than half of the revenue comes from repeat customers. 8% of repeat buyers contribute to 40% of revenue for online stores, right? We all know the stores we're loyal to, and that once we're loyal to them, we kind of continue to go to them. And so the reason repeat buyers are so important to businesses is that they cost less, they're easier to sell to, spend more on each purchase, spend more at critical times, and tend to expand their purchase categories into new products. At the same time, repeat buyers are unobservable to other customers, right? So repeat buyers are observable to the firm or to the business, but they're often unobservable to other customers, particularly in the offline setting, right? So if we walk into a restaurant, a retail store, or a hotel, or a bank, right, it's not clear to us necessarily, right, who is a loyal customer versus who is not in the physical offline setting. In online settings, we think that digital footprints can overcome this unobservability, right? So we can't observe them in the offline world, but maybe we can using features on platforms in the online world. So the feature we're focusing on today in particular, and I'll explain this in more detail as I go through the talk, is the updated review feature on Yelp, where if you visit a restaurant and review a restaurant, right? You leave one review, and then if you go back, you can not just leave another review, but you can update your previous review, right? So you can see this here, you can update your review. So I'll go through kind of this intervention in detail as we get to the empirical piece, but the key kind of idea I want to get across here, right, is this thing that was unobservable to us, or that is unobservable to us in the offline setting, is somewhat observable to us now in the online setting, okay? So the question is, what happens when repeat buyers are observable and can therefore explicitly influence other customers? So we know, based on the literature, the direct economic of repeat buyers, right? I spoke about this already, right? The effect on profitability, sales growth, price premium, et cetera. But little attention has been paid to this indirect spillover value of repeat buyers in empirical studies, okay? So how do repeat buyers influence other potential customers? So just to put this in a figure, which every paper likes, right? So we've seen this direct effect of repeat buyers on businesses, but what we really are caring about is this other way that businesses can benefit from repeat buyers, which is through other customers, right? So we're examining this as a spillover effect of repeat buyers on firms. So our key research questions are the following: how do repeat buyers influence other potential customers? And does the ability for customers to observe repeat buyers impact the subsequent word of mouth, right? So our outcome variables of interest are the generation of online word of mouth, both the volume and valence, okay? So we ask, what is the impact of online word of mouth in terms of the subsequent review volume? What is the impact on the review valence? And we look at this a few different ways, both kind of the number as well as the sentiment of the review content. And then we look at kind of the heterogeneity in this, right? So we argue a little bit that repeat buyers are particularly important. They serve as quality. Being able to observe the repeat buyers will serve as a quality signal for the restaurant. So we will observe some heterogeneity based on kind of who can benefit from this quality signal, right? So we ask if the impact of repeat buyers on review volume and review valence varies based on different types of restaurants. And the outcome variable, as I said, just to put it all together, is the volume and valence of the subsequent online word of mouth. Okay. And so why is this our outcome variable? We know it's important, right? We know online word of mouth matters. And I think the critical kind of piece I want to highlight here is the middle point, is that there's been a ton of studies on online word of mouth, right? And the majority of them have shown that there's this positive, robust positive relationship between online word of mouth and sales, right? And the other kind of points explain a little bit why. And importantly, online word of mouth is becoming more and more important as many of our transactions and consumption move online. Okay, so a little preview of results in case, I know we're on Zoom, in case you decide to check out a little bit early. So repeat buyers do have a spillover effect for business, right? They can boost review volume by 5.3% in the subsequent month. But interestingly, what we observe in our initial analysis is that their impact on review valence is not evident. We do subsequent analyses where we see kind of some impacts, and I'll explain that a little bit later. But the general overall effect is we see an impact on volume, but less so on valence. We kind of show empirically that this impact of the repeat buyer feature is not a result of motivating users to contribute. It's not just increased contribution, but that it does serve as a quality signal. And then we do see more along the lines again of the quality signal argument that it's lower end, newly established businesses without a lot of reviews online that kind of benefit most from this feature. Okay, we also do kind of a geographic analysis, which we are less confident in, but I will show you anyway. And we also see, when we look at the specific change in the valence of the updated review, we see that the quality upgrade, and so the increase in unchanged rating is what drives the subsequent change in review volume. Okay, so this is a preview of the results, and now I'll kind of get into the weeds and tell you how we got there. First, a brief literature review. I've covered kind of a lot of the literature that I wanted to cover in the motivation, establishing already, right, that we know that repeat buyers are strategically essential to organizations. They increase financial outcomes, and businesses are benefit from allocating marketing resources to keeping existing customers and cultivating them into repeat buyers. Okay, so this we know repeat buyers are important, right? So that's the first point. But so far, the work that has looked at repeat buyers has looked at their impact on the firm directly. Our goal is to look at the impact on other consumers, right? How can repeat buyers, observability of repeat buyers impact other consumers through generation of online word of mouth? And we know the generation of online word of mouth is important. I've covered that. But what I didn't cover, right, is that there is kind of an under-provisioning issue with the generation of online word of mouth. And there's been a lot of different platform design features and financial incentives that have been studied that kind of motivate this generation of online word of mouth. And when we look at these platform design features, we can kind of bucket them into these different groups based on the source of content, right? So business-initiated content, platform-initiated content, social or friend-initiated content, and stranger-initiated content, right? So this is kind of how we bucketed them into different groups. And our focus really is on stranger, right? These repeat buyers we don't know initiated content and how that impacts the generation of subsequent online word of mouth. Okay, so I'll pause briefly. I tend to talk fast. I'm trying to slow down, and I'll see if there's any clarification questions so far, or if I should just go directly into my research design.
So far, all clear, I guess. All
clear. Okay, awesome, perfect. So I briefly mentioned at the beginning of the talk how we go about doing this, right? So the context that we are studying is the updated review feature on Yelp. In 2008, Yelp introduced this updated review feature. And based on, so this is kind of the Yelp blog, the internal blog, or where they announce things, right? They announced this feature, and the comments kind of indicated that, did indicate, right, that users weren't particularly aware of this, right? So this was coming out of the blue. They decided to introduce this feature, and so users saw it when it was introduced. Okay, so in our view, this kind of shows that this introduction of this feature is somewhat exogenous, right? So so this is basically the kind of announcement that they're introducing this feature. So it says, take in your review you've written in the past. You should see links to write an update on the business page or on your profile page. And you can now chronicle your most recent experience at the business. And importantly, both of the reviews are there, right? Your original review and your updated review remain on the site. And the users kind of showed that they didn't, they weren't aware of this feature prior to this. Okay, so why is this specific feature important, right? The unique display that's enabled by updated reviews shows the same reviewer for the same business displayed together, right? So in other cases, like on TripAdvisor, right, you can go and TripAdvisor, which serves as our control group later on, right? You can write a new review, but you have to there's a more search cost involved with figuring out if the same person has written multiple reviews, right? If they've updated the review. So this is on Yelp, Thomas is a repeat buyer for this customer, and we see the previous review at the bottom and then the updated review on the top, right? And for this customer, it was unchanged. Okay. So during our observation period, the updated review feature is only implemented on Yelp, but not on TripAdvisor. So we use the same restaurant on TripAdvisor, and I'll explain why restaurants in a moment, same restaurant in TripAdvisor as a counterfactual for the restaurant on Yelp, okay? So we collect data, well, I'll get to that. We collect data from both TripAdvisor and Yelp has this feature and TripAdvisor does not have this feature, okay? So our context is restaurants. Indeed, restaurants are we believe that they're a good kind of context to study this because we do go there repeatedly often, right? Restaurants do attract repeat buyers as compared to other businesses like hotels. They're less affected by seasonality, and it's lower cost to actually be a repeat buyer, right? Our data comes from 207 restaurants located in Washington, D.C. These restaurants have review pages both on Yelp and TripAdvisor, and they have at least one review prior to the intervention. And one updated review during the whole time period of observation, which is 2008 to 2022, okay? we do analysis with this whole time period, and we also do a shorter analysis to deal with any other kind of confounding factors that might come in the way, right?
A quick clarification question. So how are the updated reviews displayed? Do I see them in chronological order? And if someone posts an update, do I also see the person's previous review?
Yes, you do. So this on the left here is how it's displayed. So you see the previous review at the bottom with the date and the rating, and then the updated review on the top with the rating and the date as well.
So I'm going to scroll through, then there will be an updated review, then there will be the previous review, and then there will be the next review that is sort of in line to the
From
updated
another
review.
user, right, exactly.
Okay.
But it's,
okay.
in general,
Great.
It's chronological on Yelp, yes.
Okay.
In general.
Great. Okay, so we have two more questions. Coleman, do you want to unmute yourself?
I just want to make sure it's a real simple question. Prior to the change, I could just submit a second review and it just wouldn't be linked. So the only change is that my reviews are linked. Is
Exactly,
that right?
they're displayed together, yeah. Oh, good, okay, great.
And similarly, a question which is closely related. So on TripAdvisor, I can also leave repeat reviews, just that they are not shown together, right?
Exactly,
All right.
exactly, yeah, exactly. Awesome, thank you. All right, so our research design is a difference in difference and difference, or a triple difference design. So the first difference is before or after the feature introduction on Yelp, right? So this date is the same, it's that 2008 date for all users, right? The second difference is Yelp versus TripAdvisor, right? So that helps us take care of any kind of omitted variables that could be affecting the restaurant, right? So a promotion by the restaurant, any quality improvements in the restaurant, right? And the third difference is kind of this, whether the restaurant has an updated review in a given month, right? So in a given restaurant month observation, is there an updated review or not, right? So those are our three differences, triple differences. We follow kind of other literature in IS that does this as well, as I say here, right? And so our two outcome variables that we start with are the change in review volume between TripAdvisor and Yelp, right? And so the key, right, so you can see that here, change in review volume, the difference in review volume, sorry, between Yelp and TripAdvisor, and the difference in review valence between Yelp and TripAdvisor. We include restaurant fixed effect and year-month time fixed effects. We also experiment with restaurant time fixed effects later on, and the results are robust. And then we have a set of time-varying controls, which are the difference in the review volume, review valence, and management response. Okay, so other variables that have basically been shown to impact word of mouth generation, we control for them in our specification. Okay. So these are some basic descriptive statistics, right? So we see that there are on average more reviews on Yelp versus TripAdvisor, but the review valence isn't so different, but regardless of control for all of this. About 8% of observations, right? So restaurant month observations have an updated review. And then these are our control variables, some summary statistics of our control variables, right? So that we have, just to be clear about how they're displayed, right? So the cumulative review volume on Yelp, cumulative review volume on TripAdvisor, and then the difference between the two, right? Okay, so we control for all of those, these additional variables. So I have a few graphs to summarize some, I think, key points, right, in our data, which is we do see kind of a distribution of the review volume. And these are the restaurants, right, that are in our data set, restaurants with at least one updated review. And so we see some are less popular restaurants and some are restaurants that have a lot of reviews. The second graph shows the distribution of the cumulative review valence by the end of our observation period. So a key point that I'd like to point out here is that restaurants with updated reviews, right, have a variety of reviews, right? They have both low reviews and high reviews. Okay. So it's not just the most popular restaurants or least popular restaurants that are getting updated reviews. So this is just to show you, right? I was actually going to take the slide out. Anyway, it's not beautiful, but it shows that there's at least, if there's a red dot, it shows that there's at least one updated review in that month, right? So we see that this is something that happens. People are leveraging this feature. They're using updated reviews, and for some restaurants more than others, right? Okay, so main results. I'll pause for questions. Nothing?
So far so clear.
Okay, great. So our main results, I highlighted these in the beginning, right? So basically we see, we have a model without the control variables as model 1, and then model 3, or model 1 and 4, and then model 3 and 6 have the control variables, right? So we see that repeat buyers positively boost subsequent review volume by approximately 5.3%, which translates to about 538 new reviews per year for the entire set of 207 restaurants we studied. But we don't see evidence that repeat buyers impact subsequent review valence, right? So this is kind of our fundamental basic result based on our DDD specification. But we do a wide variety of robustness checks, right? So one might argue, and I'll go through these in detail, one might argue that there are differences just that we can't difference out between Yelp and TripAdvisor. We play around with different variable operationalizations, both the treatment variable and outcome variables, and then we control for additional confounding factors. So I'll walk through some of those robustness checks. Yes, there are more questions. Yeah,
yes, Imke was first.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, good to see you. I think Hannes raised his hand first, but I chatted first. So actually, I had a quick question about the figure, the blue and red picture, where, sorry if you mentioned that already, but I was wondering if, so there must be a big difference also in just the demand for those, for those as you go from the bottom to the top, right? How much of a role does that play?
Yeah, so we do some heterogeneity analysis. So I'll show that in a little bit, based a little bit kind of on popularity, right? And I think and you can tell me if you don't believe this, but we do control for kind of with cumulative review valence. I think we kind of do control for a little bit of the difference in the popularity of these restaurants. But I think the heterogeneity analysis of kind of the more popular versus less popular restaurants give us a little bit more insight into why we're seeing these results, and I'll show that in a bit. But do you have any other thoughts? I'm happy to hear if you have suggestions or.
Not yet, but I'll think about it. Thank you.
Perfect. Great.
So I was just wondering if when an update happens, if they are on average making them more positive or more negative, or whether this is symmetric, and if you are exploring that heterogeneity.
Yes, we do explore the heterogeneity, so I'll show you that when I get to those results. Yeah, for sure. So maybe what I'll do to make sure we get to the heterogeneity, I'll show you these robustness checks, just so you believe my results, and then I'll go quickly to the heterogeneity analysis, which I do think is a bit more. It gives a little bit more of an interesting story to this, right? So I'll use the summary slide, and I can always go to the detail slides if you have questions. But first, right, we ask, our review volume and review valence of the same business on Yelp and TripAdvisor comparable, right? So can we say that TripAdvisor can serve as a control group? We estimate a relative time model in the traditional way, and we find that there's no pre-treatment differences, okay? User demographics and review behavior on Yelp and TripAdvisor may not be perfectly comparable, right? So then we do a within Yelp comparison, and we find very similar results. And then the results may be due to differences in popularity between the two platforms. So then we control for Google Trends as proxies of popularity of each platform, okay? And our results are very consistent. So this is the relative time model. This is the within Yelp comparison. I'm happy to go into the look ahead propensity score matching, which we use for this, but we do another kind of quasi-experimental method, which gets us allows us to have a treatment and control group within Yelp itself, and we find qualitatively similar results. Actually, the effect size is bigger. And then we leverage Google Trends as a proxy, as I just said, in our results. The second set of robustness checks were about variable I don't know why I'm struggling with this word today, I'm sorry, reoperationalization, right? So the question is, can the dummy variable for updated reviews simply just increase the visibility, right? So it's not actually about the updated review, it's about the visibility. So what we did is we re-operationalized the updated review as a ratio of updated reviews to that, I can show you that, right, to overall review volume. And we still see this kind of very strong, actually, effect of the updated review. We then, to help mitigate the concern that potential readers may read updated reviews posted in earlier months, we re-operationalized the updated review variable as a stock variable. I said I wasn't going to show these, but I'm showing these. So we kind of weighted the ones that are closer to this time period more, and we re-estimated this, and we again get there. This is very similar to our main results. And then, of course, the critical question is it because there are more updated reviews, right? So this feature is now just stimulating more updated reviews and not more organic reviews. So the organic reviews is what would tell us that new people are actually going to the restaurant and this is cool, right? And so we take out all the updated reviews from the outcome variable and we see qualitatively similar results. So I'll go to those, right? So this is what we did in this robustness check, and we see very, very similar results. And then I hope I'm not making you dizzy by going back and forth. And then we asked if the review rating may not fully capture the valence, right? So the review rating is what you put on Yelp, the number that you put on Yelp, but we go a bit further and we say, what about if we look at the actual sentiment, right, of the text? And so this we used natural language AI from Google Cloud to classify this as to score the sentiment from -1 to +1, and we still see kind of no significant effect on the review valence. Okay. And the third set of robustness checks are about other confounding factors that could kind of play into this, that could kind of bias the estimate of our treatment effect, right? So, of course, we have a really long set of data. And so could there be new other system designs? Or, of course, our data goes all the way to 2022. So what about the COVID factor, right? All of these other things. So we limit the scope of data to 1 or 2 or 3 years after the design implementation, right? So we narrow it down and we see very similar results. These, I think, are more straightforward. So I'll show you those as we go through. And then, it could just be other factors that are driving the treatment effect, right? Is there something else that's happening at the same time that's actually showing us that there's a treatment effect? So we do these standard methods of reshuffling the treatment and doing a placebo, changing the treatment to a random placebo implementation month, and we see no significant effects, which is good, right? So when we change the treatment time, we want to not see a significant effect, which we don't. And then then, as I said before, we also control for restaurant-specific linear time trends in case there's something restaurant-specific over time that we aren't controlling for in the other specification, and that also gives us very similar qualitative results. So at this point, I hope you buy our main results, right? That we see a main effect of review valence and not an effect review. We see an effect on review volume, and we don't see an effect for review valence. Okay, so that's I'm kind of ending the robustness checks for the main specification there, and go into the mechanism, the exploration of the mechanism, right? So why do we see this happen? And this gets into some of the heterogeneity that you asked about before. So the 2 mechanisms that one might argue are happening here is, one, the quality signal, which is what we think is happening, right? Repeat buyers serve as a quality signal to potential customers because they are more likely to be satisfied customers, therefore, attracting more offline engagement and reviews, right? On the other hand, this could just be other people are contributing, right? It's now more salient to me that other people are contributing, so now I'm going to contribute as well, right? So this is the kind of what we call the contribution motivation. So we kind of argue that in doing this heterogeneity analysis, if it's a quality signal argument that holds here, we would see heterogeneous effects for lower end restaurants based on price tier, restaurants at younger stages, restaurants with less reviews, distant customers, right? And that we would see a more pronounced change for updated reviews with increased or unchanged ratings, right? So these are what we would expect under a quality signal. For most of these, if it's mechanism 2, right, we wouldn't expect to see a result, right? If it's just a contribution mechanism, then we would expect that an updated review is likely to stimulate contribution in the same way, and it should not depend on the heterogeneity or the type of restaurant, right? So that's generally kind of our argument here. And so when we go through kind of each of these heterogeneity analysis, we see, so Yelp has kind of these price tiers, 1, 2, 3, and 4 that they indicate on the platform. So we see for lower end restaurants based on price, right? So price tier 1 and 2, this is really what's driving the average effect, right? And the higher end restaurants are not necessarily impacted by this. So now I'm kind of focusing on the review volume results, since we don't necessarily see results in this metric of review valence. And that just kind of graphs what we just saw in the prior slide. When we look at age of restaurants, we see that the review volume is stronger for restaurants at younger stages, right? Where again, right, lower price tiers, younger restaurants, we might expect that there's higher quality uncertainty associated with these restaurants. Cumulative number of reviews, it's very similar. And I hope this gets at what you were asking, right? That the effect of repeat buyers on volume is stronger for restaurants with less cumulative reviews. Again, less certainty about the quality, less information about the quality. This one we did, so we looked at, this is a little bit less kind of, we can't sort this out as well, but I'll share it with you anyway. So we argue that distance customers will be more likely, distant customers will have less quality information about a restaurant, right? So it should be more impacted by an updated review. And so since the restaurants are in DC, right, we would expect them to have less uncertainty. The people who live in DC to have less uncertainty versus outside of DC, right, other locations, right? Maryland and Virginia are very close, so it's uncertain. But what I mean, we do kind of see that other locations there's a higher coefficient for these other locations, but it's a bit this result is a bit less. I'm a bit less confident in this result, right, than the other ones, right? Okay. So there's not much, we can't really observe a very significant difference, right, between DC and other locations. And then this gets at Hannes's question, right? So the rating change of updated reviews. So when we look at when updated reviews are either decreased, increased, or unchanged, right? And so the way we measure that is if in that month the increased reviews are dominant, because this is monthly level observation, aggregated at the monthly level. Increased reviews are dominant, decreased reviews are dominant, or unchanged reviews are dominant, right? When there's an updated review. And so we see that we only see this effect really when the reviews are increased or unchanged, right? So these are 3 examples just to give you other examples, just so you can see kind of how the reviews might change. So on the top left is a decreased, this would be an increased review, right? So from 2 stars to 5 stars. The middle one is a decreased review from 5 stars to 3 stars, and this is an unchanged review. It's the one we've been looking at, which is 5 stars, and it stays at 5 stars, but they still write an updated review. So we basically see, right? So just to kind of bring this together, so we saw kind of a strong main effect for review volume. The impact of updated reviews on review volume, we see a strong main effect. We don't see a strong effect or effect at all on review valence. The review volume effect really comes from these restaurants where we might expect to have higher quality uncertainty, right? We're less certain about the restaurants. And we see that across a variety of different ways of measuring having higher quality uncertainty. So then we dug a little bit deeper into review valence. Okay, and so this is where we used. So the prior analysis was at the restaurant month level, right? So in this analysis, we look at each observation as a review, and we see basically the impact on the subsequent review, right? So if we disaggregate our analysis from the month level to really the review level analysis, so does an updated review at time t, which can be any moment, affect the next review, which can be any moment, right? It just is the subsequent review. Okay, and the reason we do that is we argue that maybe averaging across a month could be just kind of smoothing out any effects that we're seeing, right? Sorry, my computer started doing something weird. Okay, so it could be smoothing out the effect that we're trying to observe, right? So I can, I'm cognizant of the time, so I'm not kind of getting into the weeds, but I can, right? So basically, I guess the difference here is this is a review I for restaurant J, platform K at time T, and what we care about is if there's at least one repeat buyer in the last period, but the last period is really just the last review, right? Okay, in the same set of other controls, and the coefficient we care about is beta 3. Okay. So as you recall, we also have text sentiment that I talked about as a robustness before, but when we break it down at the review level analysis, we start seeing some effect, right? So basically what we're seeing is that the review, if we look at it at a disaggregate level, we may start seeing kind of effect on the review valence, but it just might be averaged out across time. And so we kind of see the review valence has a different effect from the review volume, in that the review valence, okay, so let me back up a little bit. The outcome variable here is an indicator variable of if the rating is 1 in model 1, if the rating is 2 in model 2, if the rating is 3 in model 3, 4 or 5 for model 4 and 5, right? So we see that an updated review on Yelp does increase the likelihood of getting a rating of 3 or 4, and it decreases the likelihood of getting a rating of 1 or 2, right? So it does kind of, if we look at the disaggregated review level analysis, we do see an impact on the ratings at the individual level. Okay. This isn't really kind of super informative. It just price 3. I don't really have a good explanation for why a price tier 3, the review ethics would change. And then this is again the moderator at the age and moderator of age and cumulative review, which again is showing the opposite result that we saw with the review volume. The increase at the review valence at the review level is pronounced for restaurants at the older stage and those with more cumulative number of reviews. I think it's, yeah. Okay. So, and then the last one is the review valence. When it's unchanged, it's more effective. The review valence for unchanged reviews is what is. Okay, I want to get to this. This is what I want to get to. So the last kind of piece that we talked about that we did was we conducted a different metric of review valence, which is using this aspect-based sentiment analysis on each restaurant aspect: food, service, price, ambiance, and anecdote. So this is what the aspect-based sentiment analysis does, is it gives you the sentiment on each of these 5 characteristics, 5 aspects of the restaurant based on the text, okay? And so you can see you input the review text, you put it in the prediction model, right? And then you kind of get some metrics as to if it's positive, negative, conflicting, neutral, or there's kind of no sentiment, okay? And so we use this as our outcome variable, right? So whether the review I for restaurant J on platform K at time T is one of these things: positive, negative, conflicting, neutral, over these 5 different aspects. Okay. And interesting, what we see is so I guess if I'm kind of going to give a summary of what we see with valence is overall in the aggregate analysis, we don't see a lot of impact on valence, But when we disaggregate it a bit, we do see that there are some changes to the valence. There are some impacts on the review valence based on updated reviews. And what we see is more negative opinions about, so the aspect is on the top here, right? Food, service, price, ambiance, and anecdotes, right? There's conflicting opinions about food. The conflicting opinions about food and ambiance decrease. The positive opinions about anecdotes increase, right? So we have both positive. Okay, let me back up, right? We have positive impacts of anecdotes increase, and the negative opinions of anecdotes decrease, right? So that kind of goes together, okay? The positive impact of ambiance doesn't change, but the negative opinions about ambiance decrease, right? And the conflicting opinions about ambiance decrease, right? So we see that a lot of the negativity increases, even if we don't see positive, negativity decreases, positive either increases or doesn't change, right? And conflicting decreases. So this kind of gives us a little bit more nuance into kind of understanding the impact of review valence. And I would say if we were to aggregate this all together, what we observe is at the more individual level analysis, we see a positive impact on valence, but we have to really dig into the details in order to see that positive impact. Okay, so overall, I think the story we're trying to tell here really is that repeat buyers serve as a quality signal and that they positively boost review volume. And I think we argue, based on the empirics in the first part that I shared, that it's really a quality signal, that we can kind of eliminate all of the other explanations about it being kind of just a trigger for contribution, right? Or it's just increasing updated reviews, right? I think we've kind of argued that based on the empirics earlier, but I'm happy to hear any other feedback if you don't think so. The review level and sentiment analysis really suggests that review sentiment does become more positive, but that this effect is actually for the more established restaurants, right? And I don't think I said that clearly, but that's what I was trying to say. It's kind of for the review volume, we saw the impact more where we need a quality signal. For the review valence, it was just kind of reinforcing what is already known, right? That if we know it's established, we know it's good, it's still that way, right? And then the last point is potential customers can discern quality upgrades and downgrades. Only updated reviews with increased or unchanged rating derive subsequent review volume. Okay. So to bring it back to the beginning, we study the indirect value of repeat buyers to other consumers, right? So this is kind of a key part of this, right? Is that loyalty is very difficult to observe in offline settings, and we can now observe it online. And seeing how that impacts other customers as a spillover effect instead of directly impacting the business is something that we think is new, right? So this kind of contributes to literature on platform design, but in the context of online reviews, which tells us, we could say that the display structure of these online reviews in terms of repeat buyers can play a significant role in the impact of those reviews. So what are the managerial implications, right? So as I was working on this presentation for today, I kept thinking about how could this be implemented also in the offline setting, right? And then I'm thinking, oh yeah, you have a loyalty line for Marriott Elites when you go to the Marriott hotel. Does it actually impact other customers, or is that just is there kind of a spillover value that would impact other customers to say you get faster, better service if you're a loyal customer? But overall, for managerial implications, businesses can design incentives to encourage loyal customers to more frequently post new experiences, right? So to update their reviews, to increase the saliency of repeat buyers on their pages. Yeah, and I think interestingly, this benefits not only review platforms, which is a lot of what this literature is focused on, right? And how do you increase contribution within your own platform in order to get engagement, get advertising revenue, get people to monetize, right? Or get your platform, increase your monetization. I think this really impacts kind of not only the platform, but the businesses for which you're writing reviews on the platform. So we hope we contribute a little bit to both the marketing work on loyalty as well as the platform design work in terms of introducing features online, which is how it relates to the work that I've done before. So I'm right at 11:45. I think that was exactly what I was supposed to do. I hope. Or 11:45 for me. I know it's later for many of you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Awesome, great timing, Jui. We do have a question by Larry White. Some ideas for further robustness tests. Larry, please go ahead.
Oh yeah, sure.
Sure. This is interesting stuff. This is the journal editor in me coming out.
Great.
You've got a lot of data. And when I see a study with a lot of data, I immediately think slicing and dicing to see is the effect uniform across all of your observations, or in a sense, is there local variation? And local, all right, let me start with observation. Restaurants are located in neighborhoods. Now you do have your fixed effects for restaurants, but geez, maybe Georgetown restaurants are different from Northeast Washington restaurants. And the way you find that out is you separate your sample into, I don't know, the 4 quadrants of Washington: Northeast, Northwest, Southeast, Southwest. You run 4 separate regressions. You do chow test type, F tests to see, are there significant differences, or really the pooled sample is the right one. Similarly, you could break the sample up into high volume of reviews, low volume of reviews. Even you've got age as a right-hand side variable, break it up more into young versus old. Or even, and I couldn't see the age variable carefully enough, whether it was linear or non-linear, but where is it written that we would expect to see a linear relationship on age? Logging age could tell you something about the possible hey, first couple of months is really different from the 5 years. So I would just urge you, be creative in the way you think about your data and slicing and dicing.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I'm also a big fan of heterogeneity analysis. We did some in terms of quality uncertainty, but I think that I like the quadrant idea for sure. I think you're maybe getting more at kind of consumer heterogeneity, right? So you have different.
Well, for the neighborhoods, yeah. But even just, hey, are high volume review restaurants different from low volume review restaurants? You partly capture that through a right-hand side variable, but separating the samples in a chow test kind of context. Geez, these guys are fundamentally different. They have different error term structures, etc. And pooling them loses some interesting.
Got it. Makes sense. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Next up, Dimitri Moserovs.
Yeah. Right. Thanks for a great presentation. I have this question about the identifying assumption in a triple diff setting. What is it? What's sort of the analog of kind of parallel trends in the different diff setting? And if so, can you test it?
So I think I thought I was going slowly, but I think I was not. This is like a standard problem that I have. But we did do so. We had our treatment group was essentially Yelp. There's a little bit more, a little bit more than that, but Yelp, and then our control was TripAdvisor. And this is the parallel. We tested the parallel trends assumption, kind of, just making sure that the differences in the months before TripAdvisor and Yelp were not significant differences in the months before Yelp. And so that's how the current literature has done it. And so this is what we did. And we graphed the coefficients with the confidence intervals, and we can see that they're not significantly different from 0. But yeah, great question. I think I need to spend more time on that. So thanks for that. Yeah.
I missed that. Thank you.
No worries. Yeah.
Michael, please go ahead.
Okay, so you've really nice presentation, super interesting. I really like the results. I have one minor comment and one major comment. So continuing to what Dimitri asked and etc., this is a kind of similar to staggered adoption setting. It's not the typical staggered adoption setting. Okay. Because you have the treatment, which is kind of, if I'm gonna have an updated review, it's not common for every restaurant. So, and not, if treating like typical two-way fixed effects models and etc., they might have some kind of biases and etc. So there are some kind of ways of testing for that kind of reason. But this is a kind of minor comment. This is something that you can check with other ways and etc. We cannot talk also offline of that. But my major concern is the following. Now you treat this kind of updated review as a kind of review feedback with more extra value. This is kind of the assumption that you make. Some kind of, this is a review, but holds also some kind of more value because it's a repeated one, and etc. So it should have more weight on an impact in general on that. Now, the way that I read your results is also that it's not necessarily that it's true. It's just one more extra comment. The issue is kind of with this design. And at the platform of Yelp, Yelp incentivize buyers to give an extra review, something that TripAdvisor doesn't do. So at the end, it's kind of more volume of previous comments, but not necessarily the value of repeated. And why I'm saying this, because I was some kind of concerned when you demonstrated the change of the updates of reviews, if it go from low to high, high to low, or even don't change at all, and etc. And over there, it's kind of, if the review goes from high to low, depreciates, and etc., there's no effect on the volume.
Right.
But on the other ones, they do have, they're changed, and when you go up, and etc. Yeah. And also, since you find the effect for low tiers restaurants, that means that have low volume of comments, this might be that just they get another extra comment. It's not necessarily that it's the repeated buyer, the value that we get. It's kind of the platform Yelp incentivize users to give in their more comments. Yelp is kind of repeated. Yeah. So at the end, it's kind of welcomes more comments. So these more comments come into effect. So it's kind of a story of having more reviews that later on can lead to more reviews.
Right. Okay, so I think that's a very good comment. I think we may have tried to address this, but maybe we didn't do it well enough. So let me know. So there's two things that we did. One was we, and I think this is less relevant than the next one, but the first thing is we operationalized our treatment variable as a ratio instead of as the treatment, right? So instead of as a dummy variable, right? So how visible, so this is that first, an explanation is misspelled here and it's driving me crazy, but it's to get at, right? Is it just that there's another review, or is it that the updated review is actually visible, right? So we did this as a ratio and we still see the effect. The other thing that I think might be more relevant is that we did, and I don't know if where is this one? Okay, is we took out all of the, we just looked at the impact on organic reviews. We took out the subsequent updated reviews, right? So we said, does an updated review increase subsequent organic reviews? Not just that it's stimulating more people to write updated reviews. But I think your comment is more that in and of itself is just stimulating, or yeah, so it's, yeah. Exactly.
So it's not only about the organic reviews or the repeated reviews. Yeah. It's kind of this kind of stimulates.
Yeah.
Because that's why also it's kind of you later on at the high end restaurants in terms of volume, and it's like you don't find the kind of effect because later one more feedback doesn't add a lot of value over there. But at the lower end, one more comment, independently if it's repeated buyer or not, add already some kind of value to the firm. So my question is kind of, is it really about more comments or about repeated comments?
Yeah, I mean, I think we tried to get at that with this visibility and the taking out the updated reviews. But I mean, this is, I think, something that's gonna, it's not totally clear how to take, how to isolate one. No, actually, that's not true. So I see what you're saying. Okay, let me think about that. It's like the wheels are turning. Let me think about that a bit more. But great question. Thanks, Phil. Nice to see you. Yeah.
Hannes, there's a couple more questions.
Yeah, hi. So I have two questions, but interrupt me, if another question comes up, I'm happy to postpone. The first one is so again about this heterogeneity for the improving and decreasing rating of the reviews. So if I saw the coefficients correctly, I mean they were quite similar, and I think the one just barely significant at 10%, and the other just barely not significant. And so I'm not sure if they're significantly, if the difference between the two is significant. So I was wondering
Which one was it? Sorry, which
so the monthly panel results.
Monthly panel, and which analysis was it exactly? Sorry, I got
where you looked at when the updated review improves an existing review. So it was, I think, 0.048, 0.044.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. I know exactly which it is. I just have to this one.
No, I think there were more columns.
This is system design. This is, so it won't be.
There were a lot of tables.
Yeah, there were a lot of tables. No. I don't think it's here.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So
yeah. Sorry. Increased, decrease. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this decreased dominant. I mean, it doesn't seem so different to me. So I was just wondering, because I don't think so. I didn't see this in the review level analysis, and I was. So to me, so maybe I'm on the wrong track, but to me this is an important analysis to think about the quality signal.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if so I don't have a really super constructive proposition, but how to
just kind of think about it more, right?
Get more at this.
So this is the review level analysis, and so when the dominant updated review. So this we have to do a little bit differently. So the outcome variable is the next review unchanged, right? And so we do see just the strongest effect. I think I kind of flew over this, but to get through. But we do see unchanged, but not increased or decreased, right? We don't see anything for increase.
Okay.
So
yeah, so here would be super interesting to dig a bit deeper. But I mean, so again, I mean, you don't want to be the reviewer that asks you to do the 1,000 thing. So I find this super interesting, the quality difference, and then a more higher level. So if I may, Kristen, let me know if somebody else. So this is, I mean, it's on restaurants, right? So these are, I mean, I've used these review sites too. So they're changing quality. They can change in quality, both objectively, but also subjectively. So I think it's super interesting, and there's a lot that one can dig up here. But I was wondering, thinking about a more broader implications. If so, at first I thought, okay, it's a clear experience good, but even more, it's really a subjective experience good. So I was wondering if the findings here, they're really specific to. I don't know, where a subjective experience is really important, or if this could be just reducing uncertainty about the pure objective quality, and you get similar implications.
That's so it's a taste-based, so it's like everything I study, which is very taste-based, right? So music, dating, and food, they're all very taste-based experience, good. So I think in terms of generalizability, that's a really good question, right? So does it apply? So I think maybe we could do, the best way I can get at that with within restaurants is to do different types of restaurant, like be able to classify restaurants as, right, more, I got the thumbs up from Larry.
Exactly.
So I think that's a great kind of way to think about. Another way to think about where is this going to be impactful and where is it not going to be impactful, where there's less variation in taste versus more variation, taste change versus not change, something like that. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Thank you. I hope I didn't answer your question, but
yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just writing that down. Sorry. Okay. Thank you. I saw MK's chat, but I think she maybe had to go. Oh no, you're there. That you have more robustness checks. I don't know if I'm allowed to ask that now. or if we should.
I don't want to suggest any additional robustness checks.
You don't have it. Oh, no, that's not
No.
you. That's I thought that was you. Okay, no, perfect. Okay. You had something else? Oh, how was the red? Okay, you asked that already. No, Larry had additional robustness checks. Yeah, we can. I think this whole paper is going to be robustness checks, and we're gonna have one main result table. Yeah, so these are really good comments. Thank you so much for giving me.
Thank you, Jui. Yeah, I think it was a fantastic paper. A fun afternoon for us, fun morning for you, I hope. And I mean, for most of us or some of us, morning, afternoon. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming, everyone. And we have one more talk in this semester. Hannes, do you want to pull us into the details?
Sure. Yeah. So we're racing towards the summer. And so in 4 weeks, we'll meet for the last time before the summer with Ken Wilber from sunny San Diego. He'll be here on July 19th, same time, same place. Thanks a lot, Jui.
Thank you so much. This was really fun. I appreciate it.